Boxing writer Jeff Zimmerman once told me, Nonito Donaire has had 3 Hall of Fame careers, and he's right. Let's go into Nonito Donaire and why he matters so much to me and fight fans in this video. Let's play that real cool intro, and if you haven't, stop being a reoccurring viewer. Subscribe now so you can help me get people that you want to actually see. So Nonito Donaire, some people call him Donaire. I go by Donaire because I've been around his father a bit, Nonito Donaire Sr., who they have their own issues currently, but given that I've come from a family that has my own issues, I never get into that because that would be so annoying if some boxing person tried to get into my personal issue stuff. But why is Nonito Donaire a special fighter? Well, for starters, for me, one of my mentors, one of my good friends in the sport of boxing, Mike Basil. Baz has been working with Nonito probably for about 13, 14 years now. Basil's someone who, along with Herb Stone, Gabe Flores, Andy Vences, all these guys, I learned from the ground up, watching the best in the industry when they were really at accessible points. You know, like if I had started now, Mike Basil's not someone that I could have watched and learned on the job. It was a right time, right place for me. I decided to go to these club shows promoted by Paco Damian. Paco Damian doesn't really even throw local shows anymore. And on these shows, I had met Basil, I had met Bruno Escalante, and Nonito was in that subcircle. You know, he was in that world of fighters. He had taken a hard route. He had lost to Resendez. What's his name? He's the guy that's Daniel Cormier's coach in the UFC. It's Resendez Sanchez? Resendez. So sorry for forgetting your name. But he had lost early on in his career, like 3rd or 4th fight. And I want to say it was over the urban legend. I'm telling on myself if I'm right or wrong. Urban legend was that it was like a gym rivalry. And it was like they took the fight to prove a guy wrong. He loses early on. And then his brother loses to Vic Darchinyan. If I remember right, my memory's fuzzy and this is half-baked research. Darchinyan broke Glenn Donaire's jaw. It was like Darchinyan was just this little man. Like my man Sev always says. Sev will be like, Darchinyan was a little guy who treated the little guys the way a bigger man would treat these little guys. And he had no respect, and he was always in denial when he would lose, but he was just such a character in the sport of boxing. Really one of the most underrated fighters ever. People always talk about, oh, he didn't have talent, but man, did he have power. And he's for sure a Hall of Famer, but I think that often the nerdy type of people who get to vote, they want to discredit the lack of technical prowess, but I think toughness is a talent. Donaire knocked him out. He had this great HBO debut, beating a unified world champion, and then he became Boxer of the Year in 2012 or 2013. There were 2 stars emerging at that time, which were Danny Garcia and Nonito Donaire. If you look back on that, that was the same year Amir Khan got knocked out by Danny Garcia, and you had 2 choices for who you could vote for. The more active Nonito Donaire or Danny Garcia, who got the biggest win of the year, arguably. If you look, they both had I keep saying arguably. They both had possibly Hall of Fame careers. I think Nonito is a no doubt first ballot, and I think Danny Garcia may be able to get in. It's like a 50-50 on the legacy, but I don't think he'll be mad either way because he's rich. So, you know, I mean, he has a fringe Hall of Fame career, and I think he's definitely gotten what he wanted out of the sport. Nonito then faced some adversity in his career. He lost to Nicholas Walters. He had one of the fights that I felt like he was done when he fought Carl Frampton. He just didn't. The Carl Frampton fight is so bad, I forget Nonito fought Carl Frampton because I turned it off because he didn't even look like himself. He looked like a fighter that was completely done. Then he enters the World Boxing Super Series. Most people are assuming he's not going to do very well. He moves back down to 118. He had been campaigning all the way at 126. And then from that point on, he goes on this run, this historic run, and makes it to the monster Inoue. And now we know clickbait season, Inoue. We know the views come with Inoue. Nonito goes in as an older fighter, a guy probably past his prime, if we're being honest, and he's the only person to really, really, really test Inoue. You know, he caused significant damage to him in the fight, and he's the only fighter that we've ever seen Inoue possibly have some issues with, possibly have troubles with. That is the greatness of Nonito Donaire. Because all great fighters, all Hall of Fame fighters, in my opinion, this is a Lukie rule. Lukie rule. Someone could maybe keep track of these. The Lukie rule. All great fighters have one last great fight. That was Donaire's last great fight, in my opinion. Now we're going to... I'm tipping my hand. Possibly. But all great fighters have that one last great fight. Rematch it. He becomes the oldest world champion, beats Ualubi. I can't ever say his name, the Frenchman. Becomes the oldest WBC bantamweight champion. Goes, forces the Inoue fight, loses to Inoue. I'm itching because it's early in the morning. Loses to Inoue. People once again write Donaire off, this, that. And now he's entering in at 40, almost 41 years old, trying to defeat a tough, active, strong, physically fit Mexican fighter named Alexandro Santiago. Don't be surprised if this fight is close, because we often romanticize the career and forget the obvious, right? We often romanticize, okay, Nonito Donaire is better than Alexandro Santiago. He is. It's very obvious he is. If you don't understand that, well, you should probably make a YouTube channel, because it seems like a lot of YouTube channels are based off of fiction and not fact, and you probably would build a really good following. So if that's what you think, then, you know, come up with a catchy name, and then maybe you'll get going. The issue is aging is real. Age matters. Nonito's getting older. Is he going to further define that he can roll back the clock and that he can do something that we've never seen before? Because what Nonito is doing is he's had a Hall of Fame career, but now he's defying the laws of what we know boxing to be. Boxing used to be in the lower weights, those guys got older faster. Nonito has outlasted all of his peers, and now he's entering the Bernard Hopkins territory of being the veteran guy who just won't go away, which is, in this weight class, unheard of, because typically guys don't make it to 35. He's now entering into his 40s and still competing at the highest level of the sport. Minor details, the three guys that Inoue beat in this division, Rodriguez, Donaire, and Maloney, those guys could be the world champion in a couple of weeks, which also tells you how friggin' good Inoue is, that the guys that he beat to win titles then just went and became champions right after it. Donaire is just something special, you know, and I think that the reason Donaire doesn't get as much credit, but he's getting credit now, but he didn't get as much credit, was the shadow of Manny Pacquiao. Donaire came right when Pacquiao was at his superpowers, and when Pacquiao was as big as he was, Pacquiao was a global icon and a Filipino star. I think the hope was Donaire could one day get to that level, but the issue was that was some big shoes to fill, and that was a big, big burden for Nonito to have to fall behind. I think with Pacquiao no longer being as relevant of a fighter, Nonito is finally getting to kind of get his victory lap in the sport of boxing. And for every moment he has that's successful at the back end, I think it kind of defines his career even more. For those that missed out during a good portion of his HBO run and even the fights on Showbox before his HBO run, Nonito is one of these great, great fighters. I think this fight between Santiago is a true 50-50 fight. I wouldn't be surprised if Nonito knocks out Santiago. I wouldn't be surprised if Santiago outworks him. It's literally a 50-50 fight, and it's 50-50 because Nonito is in his 40s, and this guy throws a lot of punches. In minor detail, Jerwin Encanajas probably lost to the guy that he's fighting. Gary Antonio Russell had a really hard fight. This guy's a world-class fighter. You just don't know about him probably because he has a name that's very forgettable. It's a name that doesn't stand out as much. And he hasn't had that performance that was so awe-inspiring that you have to take note of who he is. I wanted to make a video about Nonito because he's that friggin' good. So if you don't know much about Nonito Donaire, maybe leave a comment in the comment section of what your favorite Nonito Donaire fight is. So then we can all this week go back and find some Nonito Donaire fights to watch, because Nonito is special. When he's gone, we're going to go, darn, we missed out on a really, really friggin' good fighter.